After Germany's defeat at the end of World War II, the Allied forces took decisive steps to capture and try the high-ranking officials and Nazi staff members directly involved in war crimes and crimes against humanity. The evidence gathered during the war, from administrative documents to first-hand testimonies of the victims, painted a grim picture of how systematic cruelty was carried out by the Nazi regime, involving mass killings, brutal torture, and inhumane treatment of prisoners. One of the figures at the heart of this system of brutality was Josef Kramer. Eyewitness accounts, including those from surviving victims, revealed how Kramer ordered heinous acts, ranging from selecting prisoners to be executed by gas to meting out brutal punishments to those deemed rebellious. However, before becoming one of the cruelest executioners in the Nazi concentration camps, Josef Kramer was just an ordinary man born into a humble family. He was the only child of Theodor and Maria Kramer, born on November 10, 1906 in Munich. His youth was marked by uncertainty, during which he did odd jobs and was often unemployed. In such circumstances, the opportunity to join the Nazi Party in 1931 and the Schutzstaffel in 1932 became a life-changing decision. For him, joining the organization was not merely an expression of support for the burgeoning Nazi ideology at the time, but also a means to secure financial stability and an elevated social status. The SS, which was then beginning to emerge as the backbone of the Nazi security and repressive system, offered opportunities for individuals like Kramer to rise within the military and administrative hierarchy. The training in the SS paved the way for Kramer to build a career as a prison guard, which then led him into the concentration camp system. His career progressed rapidly, beginning in 1934 when he was assigned as a guard at Dachau, one of the first concentration camps established by the Nazis. From there, he quickly received promotions and held senior positions in camps such as Sachsenhausen and Mauthausen. His expertise and loyalty earned him the trust to serve as an assistant to Rudolf Höss, the commandant of Auschwitz, in 1940. He even accompanied Höss in inspecting the Auschwitz site to assess the camp's suitability as a center for synthetic oil and rubber production, a strategic sector for Germany at a time of resource constraints. After undergoing a series of training sessions, he was promoted to manager or Schutzhaftlagerführer and then camp commandant. He held this position at Natzweiler Struthof in April 1941. Under his command, Kramer directly executed 80 Jewish prisoners by gas. This group was part of 87 prisoners selected at Auschwitz to be used as material for anatomical studies, as part of a plan to collect Jewish skulls for a collection at the Anatomy Institute of the Reich Strasbourg University, led by August Hirt. Of those 87 prisoners, 46 came from Thessaloniki, Greece. In the emergency gas chamber facility set up at Natzweiler Struthof, 86 prisoners were forced to die by gas, while one prisoner was shot for resisting the process. Kramer's success in carrying out these heinous tasks appears to have been a factor that accelerated his rise within the Nazi concentration camp hierarchy. In 1942, he was promoted to Hauptsturmführer, or captain, and continued to earn the trust needed to manage larger and more strategic camps. At its peak in May 1944, he was transferred to Auschwitz II-Birkenau as Lagerführer, or camp commandant, a position that granted him a direct role in the mass extermination process. His primary duty there was not only to oversee the camp, but also to ensure that the gas-killing system operated efficiently against incoming groups of prisoners. Many eyewitnesses stated that Kramer was not merely an administrator, he was directly involved in the prisoner selection process, even resorting to violence against those who resisted. At Birkenau, he oversaw, among other things, the murder of 400,000 Hungarian Jews. Witnesses reported that he actively took part in selections along the railway tracks, deciding the fate of those arriving at the camp, sometimes even personally executing the prisoners. There, Kramer's reputation as a ruthless leader grew even more. One incident that illustrated his brutality involved a camp doctor, Dr. Franz Lucas, who tried to avoid the tasks assigned by Kramer by feigning illness. When Lucas refused to participate in the selection of prisoners from the large group arriving from Hungary, Kramer did not hesitate to threaten him with severe punishment if he did not comply. However, As Germany became increasingly cornered in the war and the threat of Allied forces drew nearer, many changes occurred within the Nazi concentration camp network, including the reassignment of several officers to other locations. One such change occurred in December 1944, when Kramer was transferred to the Bergen-Belsen camp. Unlike Auschwitz, which was focused on mass executions, Bergen-Belsen was initially a transit camp for people leaving Germany. However, during the war, this camp evolved into a shelter for refugees and sick prisoners relocated from other camps. Even though it did not have gas facilities like the previous camps, Kramer's cruelty continued unabated. His extreme brutality earned him the nickname Beast of Belsen from the prisoners. As the Nazi administration began to collapse toward the end of the war, the conditions in Bergen-Belsen deteriorated even further. Many guards fled, but Kramer remained and carried out his duties according to the Nazi bureaucratic system. On March 1, 1945, he even reported that out of 42,000 prisoners, about 250 to 300 were dying each day from typhus. Over time, the number of prisoners continued to increase due to the evacuation of other camps that were nearly liberated by the Allies. The camp turned into a hellish scene, with rotting corpses everywhere, rats attacking prisoners too weak to fight back, and worsening shortages of food and medicine. In the final weeks, when Kramer learned that the Allies were about to enter Bergen-Belsen, he tried to be kind to the prisoners in the hope that he would not be caught. When British soldiers finally arrived to liberate the camp on April 15, 1945, Kramer remained on site. The soldiers found about 60,000 prisoners inside, most of them half-starved and gravely ill, and another 13,000 corpses lying unburied around the camp. However, Kramer even calmly took the Allied forces on a tour, as if he wanted to show off the horrifying scenery he had been managing all along. After the war ended, Josef Kramer could not evade responsibility for the crimes he had committed over the years in the Nazi concentration camps. He was captured by Allied forces and immediately imprisoned in Hamelin. His fate was later determined in the Belsen trial by the British military court in Lüneburg. In a trial that lasted several weeks, from September to November 1945, Kramer was tried alongside 44 other camp staff members. During the proceedings, various testimonies from surviving victims were presented to illustrate the brutality carried out by Kramer. One of the witnesses was Anita Lasker, who testified about Kramer's involvement in the prisoner selection process at Auschwitz, where he directly decided who would be sent to the gas chambers. In court, Kramer did not deny his role in the mass executions. He openly admitted that he had indeed forced Jewish prisoners into the gas chambers, but he argued that his actions were merely a form of obedience to Heinrich Himmler's orders. He also claimed that he could not ignore those orders and did not consider killing them to be a crime. After considering all the evidence presented, the court finally issued its verdict on November 17, 1945. Kramer was ultimately found guilty and sentenced to death. A few weeks after that verdict, the execution was carried out. On December 13, 1945, at the age of 39, Josef Kramer was hanged at Hamelin Prison by Albert Pierrepoint.